So, good morning, everyone. Of course, it would be lovely if you would show yourself, if we could see your face just for a moment, just that we know that you are there and you are listening. Hi, hi. So, thank you so much, Maisha, for organizing this this presentation, this intro morning about the foundation course that we are planning to start in September. And we are planning to do it online with a weekend on site in Manila and just a little bit of the intro. I'm not sure if I think I met Sigrid and of course Sanaya. I'm not sure if I met the other people, but that's okay. So I just start with a short presentation, just that I keep it kind of on time, or I keep the points so that I remember what to say. So, as I mentioned, we would love to offer the foundation course to you guys. Why? Why so? Because family constellation is something that really totally shifted my life and many people's life. And I believe that every single person on this planet, as soon as they become actually teenager, it would be great for them to have some systemic knowledge. We call it systemic knowledge or systemic lens because it's all about our family system and how the family system might be affecting our life. So, family constellation made kind of a move from this individual psychology to a systemic lens. We all ask ourselves very often, what's wrong with me? What problems do I have? What happened to me? Why do I behave this way? And very often we take it in a way individually, personally, and psychology also sees a lot of issues connected to the childhood trauma, to the person, to the events that happened to the person. And systemic lens, respectively family constellation, sees it slightly in a different way. Systemic lens means we are looking at one person. So if I would be looking at Maisha, not just, I don't see her just and this individual person sitting there, but I see her as a part of her family system. So her parents and grandparents, uncle, aunties, and the ancestors belong to the system. And whatever she might be going through may not be really connected with what happened personally to her. But it could be connected to an event, to an emotion, to a situation, to a life of a person in the family system. So we are really widening out our lens from looking at one person sitting or standing in front of us to looking at the person in relationship to her family or their family system. We realized over time when we started doing constellations, following the founder, the father of constellations, 𝗵𝗫𝘁, that I will talk about a little bit later, we found out that many things that we are experiencing, it's a repetition. It is like a pattern that we are seeing in our lives. And it is literally a repetition of something that happened to other people in our lives. It can be our mother, it can be the grandmother, it can be someone in the 5th generation before us that we actually repeat the same or similar story like those people. And the really interesting part is that we may not even know these people. So it's truly fascinating for me that we are so unconsciously connected to our family members, even if we don't know them, didn't know them, that we, out of loyalty, repeat those patterns. And this is what family constellation is all about. So people come to constellations for, it's almost like they come to constellations because they tried a lot of things already. They are doing the inner work. They worked on the childhood trauma. They have been to therapy. And of course, everything helps. Yeah. So there is no one better method or modality than the other. But people come to constellations because they feel like there is still something there. They may be shifted, but not quite. And they have the feeling that there is something bigger, maybe something that they don't know. And this is when we are actually able to look at the person exactly through the systemic lens and probably find out a little bit more. So, constellations were developed in a way by 𝗵𝗵𝗁𝗁. I don't want to go into history, but he, in a very, very short way, he was a Catholic priest and missionary in South Africa who was living with the Zulu tribe. And he was also trained psychotherapist, and he's done really, really a lot of things, studied a lot of things. But what he's really known for is family constellation and is what he calls orders of love. So the law of the universe that are running in every family. He noticed, he observed in thousands of his, not just constellations, but before constellations, in thousands of therapy hours, that it truly not, the problem did not start in the childhood. The person has done a lot of work and still struggles, so there must be something else. And living with Zulu tribe helped him to widen his perspective. And this is when he started to look at a person from systemic view, from the family view. And he developed this approach in the 80s in Germany. And honestly speaking, this has been growing, beautifully growing approach in the whole world. In Europe, it's very well known. Meanwhile, a lot of psychologists also study constellations. Before, they didn't like it so much because constellation was spot on, and it was like very laser sharp approach where we could see what's going on. And people went sometimes for 1-2 constellations, and the problem was solved, and they didn't go back to psychotherapy. So psychologists didn't really appreciate that. Nowadays, family constellation is a part of psychotherapy studies at a college because it's so powerful, because it allows us to see ourselves, our own life from a very, very much wider perspective. Now, we do not need, of course, to be psychologists to be working with it. But for me, if science people are going and learning this kind of things, that's a confirmation that it's really, really helpful approach to therapy and also just approach to life. And Constellation Foundation course will be really bringing us a lot of insights, what we can do and how it helped. Good. So as we know now already, the person is never separate from the family system. So some issues may be going literally to the childhood, maybe beliefs that we developed or we took over from our parents. But also it can be the patterns that we carry from our family system, from our ancestors, and it can be also the burden that we truly took on ourselves so that we can stay connected. The very important thing that we need to understand is that all of this happens unconsciously. That's why when we have a chat, a very conscious chat about life, we may not be aware at all that what we talk about, what we experience, the patterns that we see in our lives, the relationships that we are attracting, the bosses that we are having, it is actually a reflection not just of our mother and father relationship in the childhood, but also systemic burden that we took on ourselves just to be connected and loyal to our family. And you may ask, why would we do it, right? Because it is silly to take on burden to stay connected. And the answer to it is very simple, because we are, no matter how old we are always children of our parents. And children need to survive. And even if we are adults, of course, cognitively, consciously, we are aware we will survive. With parents, without the parents, we will survive. But as a child, this belief that without our parents or without our family, we won't survive is very, very valid. And it's real and it's true. And we are unconsciously afraid to be kicked out of our system, of our family. And that's the reason why we become so incredibly loyal to the system. And out of loyalty, meaning out of love, we take on the burden. And that's why we are often not aware of it, because as I say, who would consciously take on burden? Nobody. It would be really, really silly in a way. So it's all happening unconsciously. And family constellation is one of few, I would say, approaches that are able to dig into those unconscious pattern, unconscious burden, and resolve them. Yeah, so that's something that we actually already spoke about. And a system, a family system, is more than just few people together. It is a living relational system, and we are all interconnected. So what happens is, I don't know if you know the mobile for children, for babies, or even the wind chimes. You know, they are few parts hanging, right? Hanging together, and they are moving when the wind comes. Or the mobile, very often there is some music, and it's a very balanced mobile or a wind chime. It has few strings with certain object elements on it, and it's beautifully balanced. And now imagine that you take a scissors and you cut off one of those elements. What happens? The mobile or the wind chime will go like this, right? It won't be beautifully balanced anymore. So it will, what's the word in English? It will be just like, in a way, crooked, right? And that shows immediately, that's a beautiful metaphor to our family constellation and the system, because when we exclude something or someone in the system, that's what happens with the system. The system becomes imbalanced. And when the system is imbalanced, the love is not flowing properly. So when the love is not flowing properly in our family, we are not on our strongest position. Yeah. So the moment there is one of the three laws, one of the three orders that I will talk in a moment about, are out of balance, this is what happens with the system, and there is interruption, there is imbalance, and if there is imbalance, it may affect us as well. And even though we do everything that feels right, we are hardworking, we are working on our mindset, so we are working on our beliefs, something still does not work. And it is because the love is not flowing, because the system is in imbalance. So whatever happened in the previous generation may affect us in one way or another. And that's what we look at from a constellation perspective. And these are the three systemic principles. The one I spoke about, orders of love, how 𝗪𝗛𝗫 calls them hierarchy, belonging, and balance. And if one of them is out of order, is imbalanced, and trust me, we've seen, or I've seen everything happening in almost every family, this is when the system is imbalanced, and that's what affects our life as well. So, the first order hierarchy, what does that mean? Hierarchy means simply whoever comes first is first. So it's not about authority or domination, but it is about that everyone needs to take their own place. So the child always comes after the parents. The first sibling will always be the first, right? If the youngest siblings start taking over the role of the eldest sibling, then the balance is out. It's imbalance in the system. So it happens as well that a child may take a role of a rescue of the parent, or he starts or she starts parentifying the parents, so basically parenting the parents, and all of these things bring a lot of imbalance. And when we are affected, then what happens with us, we feel weak on our place. We may not have that strength to move on, to go ahead with our plans, to find the right partner, to have really wonderful work and have abundance in our lives. So when hierarchy is disturbed, very often we take too much on. We may become people pleaser. We may become the ones who need to control everything. And of course, when the time passes, this will bring exhaustion, this will bring tiredness, and we won't be truly happy in our lives. So looking at the hierarchy, finding our right place is really crucial. The second order of love is belonging. And this means that every single person who was ever conceived, so not just the people who were born, the children who were born, but just even children who were conceived but didn't make it. So the miscarriages, aborted children, children given up for adoption, for example. Everyone has the same right to belong to our system. And you may look at your family, you may look at your friend's family and just notice, is really everybody accepted? Is really everyone included? Or is there any black sheep in your family? Or is there any person, a child, who perhaps nobody talks about? Maybe there is illegitimate child and nobody talks about. Maybe there is miscarriage and it was so painful for the parents that they stopped talking about it and the child was never acknowledged. Or maybe there is a person who did something wrong and went to a prison and, people are ashamed of this person. So if someone is excluded, exclusion is the opposite of belonging. If someone has been excluded in your family, and they don't need to be excluded by you, they can be excluded by your parents, your grandparents, your aunties. So if someone didn't get the right place, was not accepted for who they are. This is when belonging is out of balance. And again, it may create what we call entanglement. It may create that we repeat patterns and we are not on our stronger position. So how this exclusion may show up is basically when what I just mentioned, when the people were excluded for some reason, then how we may experience it. We may experience losses of money, losses of even people, relationship failures, or we may be really identified with those excluded people and we may feel excluded too. It's this feeling of, I don't belong anywhere. I don't fit in. Yeah. So that's how it can show up in our life. And the third order of love is balance. And there are two balances actually. But in this law is about everybody has their own fate. And they are responsible for their own fate. They are responsible for their actions. I'm not sure if you have experienced something like this scenario, that someone did something wrong in your family. So I can give my own example. My grandfather was, during the war, he was fighting the Germans. I'm from Poland, so he was Polish, really fighting against the Nazis and the Germans during the Second World War. And he did something wrong. Now, I don't know exactly what it was. It showed up in a constellation. It showed up as the guilt that I have been carrying, which was his guilt. So I know in Malaysia, you know, guys, that I live in Malaysia. So in Malaysia, there is a lot of people who have the feeling if somebody in the system did something wrong, they can balance it out by, for example, giving money to the charity. And so I thought it should work, right? So coming back to my story, my grandfather did something wrong. And because he didn't own his guilt, he didn't pay for it in a way, for his wrongdoing, I, as the granddaughter, unconsciously took on the feeling of guilt. And guess what? Every time I was going out for lunch, for breakfast, for coffee, I felt responsible to pay for it. I could not allow my friends to pay for me. When they paid for me, I felt guilty. And I felt, this is really not normal because I didn't do anything wrong. So why should I feel guilty that they are inviting me and paying for my coffee? And this is when I did Constellation and I found out the guilt that I was experiencing by going out and being invited and not being able to pay was not even my guilt. And only by acknowledging it and leaving it with my grandfather, this shifted. So this is an example of if my parent, if my brother, if my grandfather does or did something wrong and didn't pay for it because or didn't take responsibility for it, I may try to balance it out, but it won't happen. It's not possible because of that order of love, because of that balance. So what happens is I need to leave it with him. I need to really just leave that responsibility and the consequences with him or them, and also leave the guilt. And this is when it shifts. And, you know, honestly speaking, if I wouldn't have done Constellation, I don't know how I would have found it out. There are other ways. You can find it out during hypnosis and other modalities, but constellations were really, really very helpful in such way that it was so clear to me. So, what are constellations? So, some of you, maybe you have experienced constellations already. Usually they are done in the group. This was how 𝗪𝗛𝗲 originally worked with constellations. He was working in group settings. Nowadays, of course, over the 40 years, meanwhile, constellations evolved a lot, and it can be done in group settings, and they can be done in one-on-one private sessions as well, by using dolls, figurines, using just normal objects. So it's truly amazing that constellation can be done in so many ways. We have water constellations now. We have constellations that we can do in our mind. Very simple processes can bring truly profound changes. And I think 𝗪𝗁 can even share, her own experiences, how it shifted a lot of things, especially the insights and understanding where issues or what and who the issues may be connected to and what to do with it. That's the beauty. So they are an experiential approach, not even method actually, but approach that we look at the whole system. We are looking at who are we connected with? What are we connected with? Are we carrying an emotion? Are we repeating someone else's pattern? So it's not about fortune telling. It's not a woo-woo stuff, even though sometimes it feels a little bit like that. But it's very down to earth process and exploration. And the most beautiful thing I feel about constellation is that we feel it in our body. And nowadays, there is so much talk about trauma, about somatic experiencing, that everything literally has to land in the body because it needs to shift in the body. Why? Because trauma is stress, and trauma lives in our body. That's why I love constellation so much, because it's not just a concept that we think mentally, cognitively, oh, I'm repeating the same pattern that my grandma had, and that's it. But we actually focus on our body and we feel it. And even in private sessions, even in one-on-one constellations, we actually feel it in our body. We feel the shifts happening immediately. The results may not happen immediately. We feel the shift in the body, but constellations are like planting a seed. So it's not like, okay, I'm getting a result and, I'm going home and my family is different. No, it takes a little bit of time, but I had many, many experiences when literally things changed after 1 to 2 days. And some of them, they took a little bit longer, but I can confidently say that every constellation brings some change. That's for sure. And very often we see it not just within ourselves, but also within our family as well, because constellations have beautiful ripple effect onto our family, on those who came before us and those who come after us, our children, our grandchildren, and so on, and also our siblings and sometimes our spouses. I'm sure that you know that we generally say when your energy changes, everything changes, and that's true. But in constellation, it's not just about our energy change. It is really, truly about acknowledgement of what happened in the past, which people belong to our system. So it's not just our energy, I would say, but also the acknowledgement and healing that beautiful and sometimes challenging connection to our ancestors, our parents, our grandparents. So, any questions about that? That was just a quick introduction about constellation, and then I would like to talk a little bit more about the course. And of course, at the end, we will have questions as well, if you have questions. All right, I think nothing is there at the moment. Okay, so the Family Constellation Foundation course, what is it? It is a course where we basically get to know the whole systemic knowledge that is available right now out there by 𝗪𝗪𝗁𝐻𝗪. So the focus is on learning what 𝗪𝗪𝗁𝐻𝗪 observed, what he found out. So all the systemic principles. I was talking now about orders of love, but orders of love, that's just the main philosophy. We will be talking a lot and working with genogram. So genogram is the family tree that we need to map out. This is how you already see by doing the genogram where patterns may be repeating, where they are similar dates of birth or death, similar sicknesses. So really based on the genogram, you can see a lot. We talk a lot about the mother and the mother wound. I know that some joined the mother wound. So we don't go as deep as that because mother wound was really more on focusing on ourselves. But we will be talking and doing a lot of processes about the mother, about the father, siblings, our birth order. I think I said twice or even 3 times that if there is imbalance in a family system, what happens is that we are not connected to our strength. Why not? Because we can only be strong when we are standing on our rightful place. So like myself, I'm the only living child. However, my mother had 1 abortion before me and 2 abortions after me. And my whole life, until Family Constellation, I assumed I'm the firstborn, right? Because officially I am the firstborn. Nobody was born before me. But I am not, when it comes to the birth order or the siblings line, I'm not the first one. And I'm not the only one. So the first child always carries the most responsibilities. This is just how it is in this universe, on this planet. The moment I actually acknowledged my brother, the first one who was conceived and aborted, I gave him a name. I planted a little tree. I became more stronger. I'm not talking about physically stronger. I'm talking about I finally felt I'm on my right place. And when we don't acknowledge the aborted or miscarried children, what happens is that we may be entangled with them and not living our life fully. Yeah. So those things are very, very important. So we will be talking about it and not just talking, because talking doesn't cook the rice. We need to cook the rice. So we will be doing a lot of processes. So the foundation course is not just for you to, just learn it. Oh, now I have a little bit of knowledge, because you can read books and you have the knowledge, but we go through the processes together. And that's why it is so powerful. And these are some of the topics. Then, of course, it's not just about children and parents, it's about relationships, it's about previous partners, it's about very deep victim perpetrator dynamics that everyone has somewhere in the lineage. Addiction, abortion, adoption, guilt and innocence. We speak a lot about conscience, because conscience is like this umbrella for the whole family system and the love and the orders of love that are balanced or not balanced. And you will also learn healing sentences that you can actually use later on after the class, after the course. If you are a healer, if you are a coach, if you are a therapist, you will be able to use them not just for yourself, but also for your clients. So, who is this course for? I would say it's for everyone. In my opinion, that's why I said it in the beginning. Every teenager should actually learn it, because this is when we have the knowledge and the wisdom of how our system that we came through can affect us, we can change a lot. We can really dissolve the patterns that are bothering us. We can change the now, our present moment with that awareness, and we truly can change the future. In Constellations, we talk a lot about fate and also about destiny, and that's not the same. So, lucky for English language, fate and destiny are two different things. In German, where actually constellation comes from, there is only one word for the fate or destiny. But what happens is when we really look deeply into our lives, we have been living our life, and whatever happened until now, we see it as fate. Of course, sometimes we took very, very clear and conscious decisions, especially about healing, and we have already changed the destiny or the fate, and it became a little bit of a destiny. So maybe the last few years, while you were doing the inner work on yourself, for yourself, you have already changed, and the fate became a destiny. And what I love to see through Constellation, what happens is, whatever we've been living in the past, we can't change it anymore, but we can change the future. So we can literally acknowledge the past, heal the past, and then change our future, so that our future is not fated in that sense that, everything is set in stone, but we start co-creating the future. Some things are set in stone, I believe, because they are for our soul to experience, but we can change a lot of things. So it is really like beautiful co-creation. So if you are a therapist, if you are a coach or a healer, you will gain much, much wider perspective into your clients' issues. So instead of maybe working only on the beliefs or only on the mindset, or if you are energy healer, only on clearing the energy for your client, you will be able to see how the system influenced your clients, and you will be able to do small processes for your clients. After foundation course, you are not able to do the full constellation, probably on working on a very, very specific issue, because I'm not teaching that. For that is a practitioner course, which comes after foundation, but you are able to do a lot. And again, here 𝗪𝗁 can share because she has done foundation. So I remember I was so amazed, like after the first weekend, she came to KL for the second weekend and she said, I was having a client and this is what I did. So whatever she learned in the first weekend, she was already able to actually use it with her clients. And that's the beauty of this work. After the first class or the second class, because we are doing online, so I'm not sure first or second, you will be able to use the healing sentences, some of the healing sentences, and some of the processes with your clients. So you will be able to see if the person is not shifting with the work that you are doing with them, maybe it's not really their fault. Maybe it's not their responsibility only. maybe there is some entanglement, loyalty to their system, and only when you look at that, they suddenly have the responsibility and they can really shift something. Yeah. And of course, as I said, it's the courses for everyone. The knowledge, the exercises give you solid foundation into how you will see life, because life is very complex. And we are in many systems. The family system was the first system we were born into. That's why it's the most powerful one, and it's the one we cannot run away from. I thought when I moved countries, I first moved from Poland to Switzerland, I thought that, okay, I leave my toxic family behind, so I will have an amazing life. Wrong. Wherever I go, I bring my family with me. So now I'm like 10,000 kilometers away from home in Malaysia for 24 years almost, and my family is with me. So the entanglements are with me. So this course brings you a lot of awareness, a lot of insights, and of course, you will be able to find more and more balance in your life and also in your family system. I always say that when we do constellations, we never do it just for ourselves. It's really for this whole system. Yeah, so that's the beauty of it. And what happens is when we do this work, when we learn about this, about constellation, about the systemic approach, how we call it, we will move more and more and more from the blind love of a child. So that loyalty, unfortunately, is not always healthy. Sometimes it is. When you have an amazing parents and wonderful relationship role model and maybe also wealth, and you are loyal to them, then it's a good thing. But if you are loyal to the pain, to the suffering, to breaking the bond with people, if you are loyal to poverty, to scarcity, that's not healthy. And that's what we call blind love. This is what I mentioned, why we as children, even adult children, we are loyal to our parents and our system, because we don't want to be excluded from the system. So already the foundation course gives you the tools to move from the blind love to conscious love. Conscious love is the love of an adult. And this is when sometimes conscious love says, this is toxic, I need to separate myself. Conscious love is not unconditional love, yeah? Because, for example, in a relationship with a spouse, there is no unconditional love. Respectively, I've never seen it. It's always give and take. Yeah. And that's very, very important. So it's not about unconditional love. It's about conscious love. And conscious love can be unconditional love sometimes, but also doesn't have to be. So, as the outcome of constellations in general, and of course the course as well, because we will be doing a lot of processes, you will become more emotionally mature. You will be standing in your own place, an adult. I think one of you were in my, or two of you, maybe even you were in my motherhood class, and we spoke about how to make difficult decisions. And this is when I was talking about standing in our right place as the child of our parents, but as an adult, because only an adult can really make difficult decisions. Children don't have to do it. Yeah. So you will become more and more mature in this way, that you will also value your own needs, your own values. it's about becoming more authentic as well. Yeah, it's not about becoming a person who, maybe your parents want you to become, but becoming a person who you're supposed to be. Your soul is sovereign. You are a sovereign person, and you are allowed to be authentic. Yeah, but you need to give yourself that permission. So that's what you may take away from the course: more compassion, more love, definitely more self-love and self-acceptance. My teacher, Dr. Nguyen San, just always said, history matters. So really, the greater respect for family history might be really beautiful outcome for you. I know in Manila, there is a lot of, many people have Chinese roots. And just 1 week ago, I was in Bangkok teaching Constellation to my students. And we went for the movie, Dear You. So for those of you who may have Chinese heritage, I really highly, highly recommend that. We were all sitting crying buckets. Not fun movie, just beautiful, touching movie. But we really, during the class, after the course, we develop much more compassion and understanding and respect for our history, for our ancestors, what they went through. And it will not end that because some of them suffered, we will suffer more. No, we will have more drive, more motivation to actually become more happy, more successful in honor of them. So it is a beautiful, beautiful work honoring the past and at the same time truly honoring and creating our future. So I believe this gives us more freedom and permission, our own permission, to be who we are. Yeah. I open for questions. If you have any questions.
Monika, I'll just read Semi's question. So she has two questions. If we don't have access to this kind of information, example, the genogram birth order, perhaps unable to ask parents, how can we proceed?
Is there anyone that we can ask? So the first question is there anyone else alive that we can ask those questions? So that's one thing, right? The other thing is, well, many people as well, for example, are adopted. They still have the parents, biological parents. They still have the grandparents. Until now, nobody was born out of the thin air. Now, not knowing, not having information, of course, it is a little bit of difficulty because we can't consciously say, oh, this is what happened to my grandma. That's why I'm repeating this pattern. However, we can always do the constellation, even not knowing any story or history of our ancestors. Why? Because it shows. When we set up a constellation, this is me, this is my mother, and this is my mother's father. What do we mean by setting up constellation? We just place it on the board or on a table. Actually, just when we look at that constellation, we start sensing something. We start feeling something. And it may not be clear. Again, we may not have the story to connect to, but we will have 100% some kind of feeling, sensation, emotion in our body that we connect to. And there is never a coincidence why we feel what we feel. There is a beautiful saying that everything that we feel makes sense, even if it doesn't make sense from our own life. It connects us to our ancestor. And even if we have absolutely zero information, just going through the process of acknowledgement of those people who we know definitely existed, like parents, grandparents, great-grandparents. That's the minimum that we know existed. We may not have any idea about siblings and aunties, uncles, but these people existed because we are here. Already this gives us actually a lot of insights. And acknowledging that is already healing.
Thank
We
you.
don't use, I'm just reading the second part.
Yeah,
We
okay.
don't use healings. What do you mean healing sentences on others? Do you mean for others? So guiding someone else through healing sentences? If we aren't doing a constellation session. Okay, so I can look at 𝗪𝗁 now and I can just ask 𝗪𝗁, because I've done the foundation course, right? And a little bit more, but already foundation course, I learned healing sentences to say to mother, father, and so on. So if 𝗪𝗁 is my client, I can just ask her, 𝗪𝗁, just look at your mother. Just imagine your mom in front of you and tell her, you are my mother and I am your daughter.
You are my mother and I am your daughter.
You are big and I am small.
You are big and I am small.
And you give and I take.
And you give and I take.
And take a deep breath. And maybe you can say, thank you for my life.
Thank you for my life.
I take it.
I take it.
For the full price that you have paid.
For the full price that you have paid.
And I pay.
And I pay.
And I do the best out of it.
And I do the best out of it.
In honor of you.
In honor of you.
And take a deep breath. How does that feel, 𝗪𝗁? Sorry,
Good.
I put you on the
No,
spot.
it's fine. And you know what's really interesting is before you can even say deep breath, I already know, like, this is where, the breathing,
Right?
it's just very natural, right?
It's
It's not like
natural.
you have to, before you even started, I'm already like, yeah, that
Yeah,
was a big statement. So the
yeah,
statements were very
yes.
powerful.
Yeah. So these are the healing sentences. We call them this way. That's how 𝗪𝗁 called them. But what you say is also true. The statements, these are the statements of the truth. And honestly, you can do it in a coffee shop, okay? And you can even do, and if you join the course, you will actually learn how to do little constellation. What I mean that you won't be able to do full constellation, like, okay, what's your problem? Oh, I have a problem with my husband. And then you are looking for the root cause. This you may not be able to do. But what you will be able to do, to place the husband of the client, to place the client, and actually even say some sentences. Warning, I just said you can do it in a coffee shop. You may end up, or your client may end up crying in a coffee shop. So that's a little bit of a warning. It happens. We actually call it coffee constellations, espresso constellations, and we can use as representations for. Now I ask 𝗪𝗁 to imagine the mom. That's actually constellation in the mind's eye. Very quickly. Was it a full constellation? No. But I promise you, even though 𝗪𝗁 has done a lot of work, definitely there is another layer that shifted just now. Something. She doesn't need to know what it was. And we didn't work on a problem. If you set up some representations, some objects, some elements for yourself and your child or your husband or your wife or whoever, and you really say those sentences, something starts shifting. Yeah. So that's how we can use the healing sentences without doing a full constellation. Oh, that's nice. You just wrote, or I just read. Can you provide an example? I didn't read it before, and I provided an example. So I hope that makes it clear. Thank you, Simi. Constellation as a participant first before joining the training course. No, actually not. If you are open to learning, and it's for everyone. As I said, even teenagers, who have no idea what it is. We are starting from zero. We are really starting from zero. So even when we are doing constellations, mini constellations during the course, I will show you how it works. I will explain exactly why we do what we do. And so you don't need to have seen constellations before. No. Any other question?
Now, I just want to add while people are asking about my perspective in joining the class. Because for me, everybody here knows how much I have been working on myself with theta healing. And when I joined the foundation class, I was flying every 8 weeks-ish, right, to Malaysia to do this. So you guys have such an opportunity where
Yeah.
you're able to do this without that added, time and, pressure and
Costs.
of course
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
cost,
Of
right?
course. Yeah.
But it was definitely worth it. One of the things I love about this course is you're not just learning concepts about family constellations, you're actually learning tools, as Monica said, you can use. You can learn
Yeah.
how to look at the situation systemically,
Yeah.
identify patterns, these dynamics, and working with healing sentences, which I do. And it's so powerful. Yesterday, I did a family constellation session in person. And as soon as I asked my client to say a statement, boom, the tears. And this is
Yeah.
it's like just at the beginning, and it started flowing, right? So, and for me, it taught me not to just, I understand my family better, but I realized the value of our ancestors. And I think that was like the biggest awakening for me. And now I have a different way of looking at what's happening in my life, and I have added tools and I can actually explore it. And of course, as I mentioned, that I'm working with clients already because, it gives me a different perspective in which I can understand them better. And, just by these statements, which are so powerful, and allowing them and helping them to shift, it's so powerful. So this course is so valuable, and you're learning something that you can continue to work with both personally and, of course, for those of you who work with others. It's an additional perspective and a set
Yeah.
of tools, right, in your
Yeah. Yeah.
in your toolbox.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you, Monica,
Thank you.
for
Yeah.
doing this for us, and allowing us to host you for this foundation class.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I love it. Before, a few years before, I didn't do any foundation class. I only offered like 1 year full-fledged practitioner courses. And the theory and all the processes were kind of incorporated in the course I was teaching, like you, Maisha, to become practitioner. And for some people, that was too much because it's 1 year commitment, more than that. And they actually asked me, some people asked me, can't you just do a short course that gives us the knowledge, the systemic knowledge, how to view our life, and also, that we can work on ourselves. This is how foundation class was actually born. So I separated the very, very long course into 2 courses, just sharing with you, because then you see that it's really for everyone. Yeah, you will be able to use it for yourself, and those of you who work with other people, definitely with others as well. And those who are interested, you can go further, like what Maisha did, and do the practitioner course. But that's something in the future. Already with foundation, you can use it. And the people who asked me to do it, not everybody went for practitioners, but when they are coaches, when they are therapists, they use it daily. Because constellation is not, sometimes we think or we feel, oh, I need to go and do constellation. What we did with 𝘊𝗍 was constellation. Every time you go to work, constellation is happening. And every time a boss changes in a corporate world, constellation is happening. So actually, the constellation is daily thing. So can you imagine how much we can change? Yeah. So it's not in person, Mary. It's online. We start on the 14th of September in the evenings. I think 10 times, I don't remember, but we will have weekend, right? We will have weekend in Manila, one weekend in December where I will also work with you and we will do some processes in person, which is, of course, it's very, very powerful as well. But the rest is online, which is very convenient for everyone. Yeah. Other levels. So this is the foundation course that we speak about. And yeah, they are levels. If you want to become a practitioner, then after foundation course, there is practitioner course that you could attend if you like it. Yeah. So that's actually what 𝘊𝗍 did. She attended the practitioner course for one-on-one sessions, so in private practice. There is also practitioner in groups, but that's something that, that's next year. So I'm not even going there. Okay, thank you, Sigrid. Thank you so much. Okay, are there any other questions? If not, then I would like to guide you through a short process. Okay, is that okay? So you will need to grab just few, actually only three objects. Okay, just a very short one. So you can grab literally anything. It can be pen, pencil, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. So these objects, they will representing something. I will tell you in a moment what. And all that you need to do, you will just place them in front of you just the way you want to. Okay? Just the way you want to. Okay. So does everyone have some objects? Okay. Good. So there will be three objects, yeah? So now choose the first one, and the first object will represent you. And just place it in front of you. And the second one will be my family. So your family system. So where you are coming from, basically your mom, dad, siblings, grandparents, great-grandparents, and so on. And just place it somewhere in relationship to the first representation that is you. Okay? Just don't think about it, just place it. And the third one represents your life. And also place it somewhere in a relationship to you. And now just look at the arrangement. Just look at how you placed it. And notice how it feels in your body. That's how I placed it. That's me. That's my system. That's my life. And just notice how that feels. No need to analyze anything. Just notice. Notice how far you stand from the other two, what kind of objects you took, and breathe. So just observe and breathe. And when you look at your family system, specifically, how does that feel? Is there any negative experience that you are having within your body? any negative emotions, or it's a very positive experience. Everything is right. Yeah. So now just look at that family system and in a way turn your representation so that it looks at that family system, your family system. And you can say to the system, to the family, and you can say it out loud. I always find saying it out loud is more powerful, but if you want to say it in your mind, you can as well. You came before me. I honor all of you. I honor your life and your fate. I belong to you, meaning I belong to you as my family. Yeah? And I also allow myself to have my own life. And take a deep breath. And you can also say, I take my life that came through you and do the best out of it in honor and memory of you. And then take a deep breath after that. And now turn yourself to your life so that you are looking at the object that represents your life. And notice what happens in your body. Maybe there is resistance, or maybe there is warmth, whatever there is. And look at your life and say, dear life, I honor my family that came before me. And I'm looking at you. I'm saying yes to you. I am yours. And take a deep, deep breath. And just notice if maybe you feel like you want to move your representation a little bit closer to life. You don't have to. There is no right or wrong, but maybe you want to. Yeah? So if you want to, you can actually move. So I'm curious, any feedback, any sharing, would you like to share if you felt anything? And it's totally fine if you didn't feel anything as well. It's not an issue at all. But what did you notice when you looked at it? I'm not sure if this was the first time you did this kind of exercise process. Anyone? Yeah. Okay. So, Simi, what you can do, you can look again at your family and you can say, whatever I've been carrying that is not mine, I leave it with you with love and respect. Whatever I have been carrying, what is not mine, I leave it with you with love and respect. And deep breath. And notice it's not that everything will go, yeah? So sometimes we need more insight, but just even doing that sentence, saying that sentence again and again from time to time, it will release a lot. And that's what we do in Constellations. That's what we do in the foundation course. We will have many different ways of leaving the what you call baggage, right? Or burden, or however we want to call it, leaving it with our parents, grandparents, our family system. That's exactly what we will be doing. And the truth is, sometimes when we have a specific issue, it's enough to do it one time for a specific issue. And sometimes we need to do it again and again and again. So that's the truth. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing, Simi. Okay, good. So yeah, so I would love to leave you with that. And if you have more questions, you can always contact 𝗪𝗁. You can also contact me if you have more specific questions about the class. All the details, the dates and the times and the price and everything are with 𝗪𝗁. So yeah, I think that would be it, 𝗪𝗁, right? Or is there
Sure.
anything else that?
I just wanted to add it is a 10 session program. So it
Mhm.
is every Monday starting from September 14th from 7 to 9:30 p.m. Manila time. And we will be doing that for 9 weeks. And then on the 10th week, which Monica mentioned is about the first week of December, she will be flying down and she will be doing a lot of in-person systemic and constellation. So
Processes and
you'll be
constellations,
able
yeah.
to experience it
Mhm.
yourself.
Yeah,
Okay, so all the price and details, I will send it to you guys. And thank you so much, Monica.
thank you.
This was
Thank
very,
you.
very insightful, which is why we don't have that many questions. So I'm so blessed to have met you and look forward to seeing you next week. Monica is
Yes,
in town
yes,
next week for a workshop. So
yeah.
see you next week then.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for
Thank you
listening and
all.
watching, and see you, 𝗪𝗁, next week. Bye. Thank you.